Friends, good afternoon and welcome to today's episode. We're going to discuss today, do you need a surge protector for your RVing adventures? I'll tell you, the quick answer is no, but then you're going to wonder why am I holding one in my hand? So let's get into it. There's several things that you're going to need before you first go RVing. Those are a cord to plug yourself into shore power, a hose to fill up your tanks, and a sewer hose to dump your tanks. That's it. Those three things. As long as you have those three things, you can successfully go RVing. Shouldn't be that hard, right? So friends, we've been RVing now for nearly 4 years. And you've never seen me once talk about a surge protector. And that's because for the last 4 years we've been doing this, we haven't had one. For this rig that we're in now, we got one of these Progressive Industries. This is the hardwired version, which we'll talk about the benefits of later in the video. But yeah, up until now, we've never had one. Several reasons for that. One was cost. Okay, these are very expensive. The good ones are anyway. There's ones that aren't as good, and they're cheaper. But when I buy something, usually I buy the best thing possible. That way I only have to spend money once and, buy once, cry once. That's why we got this. So, cost being the number one reason why we didn't get one with the old RV, but also it was a cheaper rig with less expensive things in it to break. So for instance, this rig is 50 amp and it has 2 ACs, so if there was to be a surge, twice the expense, because you got 2 ACs. Just a lot more expensive things in this one that we don't want to have to deal with. But I can tell you, in 4 years of doing this, we camp more than most people. Like, we're not just like out 2 or 3 weekends a year. 40 plus nights per year. So we're not doing this full time either. If I was hitting the road 365 living in an RV, you can bet that I would have a surge protector. Yeah, you might run into situations where you need one if you're out that much. But if you're just a weekend warrior, so like they say the average people that have an RV use it like maybe 20 nights a year, 2 or 3 trips. I just can't see spending unless you got money burning a hole in your pocket. And that's the other thing. We never had money. Like when we first started doing this was COVID times. We prefer to spend the money to go and do the things rather than spending money on gadgetry, stuff that you don't necessarily need. It's kind of like an insurance policy that, like your car insurance, it's costing you a ton of money whether you wreck or not, This is the same thing. So you're spending $200-300 on this, and you may never have a problem. We've never had a problem. So a big part of the reason we had a little bit of money to spare now, which is part of the reason we're getting it, and like I said, this rig is a little more expensive than our previous one. The other reason too I never got one before is because I did want a hardwired unit, and I didn't want to go through the trouble of hardwiring it into our old rig, which was a 30 amp rig. And about the time that I thought we had enough money to buy a surge protector, I knew we was going to upgrade rigs, and I didn't want to have to buy twice or work on it twice or any of that stuff. This should be a relatively easy install, I believe. Yeah, I wanted a hardwired one because I would worry about someone stealing something that's $200-300 that's out at your pedestal. Also, I didn't want to have to fight with anything else, store anything else. The setup and tear down process, you want it to be seamless. This is seamless as long as the power is good. I did read the instructions. This isn't the first time I've unboxed this. Right now, I'm just trying to tear some stuff apart here to try to see where this may or may not fit in here. It looks like we have plenty of space. To be honest with you, I've never actually opened this panel before, so, kind of shame on me. And there's a lot of stuff in here I'm not really positive what it is, so there's that too. But all you're really doing, and I'm going to have a hard time showing it to you, but that's not really what this video is about. Where your power comes in, so like you have your twist lock plug on the outside of the rig out here. Obviously that comes in here, and then that wire goes to your breaker box, which in ours is over there. And you're going to have to cut that wire and splice this into it. So it's pretty straightforward. This does come with instructions. This might only be good for a 50 amp rig. You know, and then too, if you was to hardwire this into a rig and then you want to sell that rig, there's an uninstall process, and you know, someone may not like however you tidy up or try to tidy up, or you may have to just buy a whole new cable, you know, because someone might not like the fact that you cut this. So there's that to think about as well. And then wherever you decide you want to mount this thing, you got to run this cable from here to wherever that is. And I haven't quite decided where we're going to mount ours yet, but we'll get there. Before we get into much else, we should tell you, what does this actually do? Okay, it's labeled as a surge protector, but this is actually what they call an EMS, which is Electrical Management System. And so it prevents surges. So like if there's a surge, it'll protect everything in the RV. There's different levels of surge protection, but it also talks about reverse polarity, open neutrals, open grounds. This has some sort of time delay too, which for your air conditioning looks like. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it talks about if AC power is interrupted or there's a fault, there's a time delay. Well, it could be 15 or 136 seconds. So yeah, there's a lot of conditions that you may experience at a campground where you're going to want the protection that something like this has to offer. Now, like in the past, if it was like a horrible storm outside, or a situation where the power went out and we knew there might be a surge, like when the power came back on, we would always unplug our RV from the pedestal. So several times, whereas torrential downpour and lightning like crazy, we would unplug the RV from the pedestal. Now, I know that's not foolproof because you're not always going to be there at your rig if something like this happens, and then there was a time where the campground lost power, and we unplugged from the pedestal until the power had come back on and was on for a little bit, and then we plugged it back. Yeah, there are measures you can take to like prevent damage to your RV without this, but this is always here and it's always going to be ready to go. I shouldn't have to think about it much, which is nice. And I like doing things where you don't have to think about it. Like you put this in here and it does its thing and I don't have to worry about anything. Those are the reasons why you should get one of these, is to protect everything. And mainly what you're talking about is your air conditioners. Those are expensive, and you don't want to end up having to replace one, for sure. Your converter might be expensive, but not as expensive as an air conditioner, that's for sure. And there might be a few other items around here, like if you was running your microwave, but we don't run our microwave much, so what's the chances of us running it during a storm, you know? And televisions and other things, I don't worry too much about. It's mainly the air conditioners, and you can tell that because it's got that time delay thing, and it's specifically built to protect your air conditioners. So before you go cutting wires inside here, you want to make sure that there's no power coming into the RV. In our case, we're unplugged from any sort of shore power. We got some batteries powering the lights right now, but that's it. But definitely you don't want any sort of power plugged in when you're working on this. It has all sorts of wiring diagrams and things that show you how to hook all this up, but what's interesting is these little doodads here, these are current sensors, so they'll be able to sensor the current that's being output to the RV, and they go over, it looks like, the red and black output wires. So it should go like that. But yeah, honestly, I'm hoping this all just goes together pretty flawlessly. It looks pretty simple here. Alright, well, if it wasn't 1,000 degrees inside the camper, this might have gone better. But I think everything's connected. These current sensors that are supposed to have arrows on them somewhere, I can't see what arrows it's talking about. I'm very confused. So hopefully I have it just by sheer luck. Otherwise, I guess I'll be tearing this apart again and starting from scratch. Okay, basically at this point I want to plug it in and see if it works before I go any further. Well, there it is, all mounted. I'm sweating to death in here. And actually I had a fan on, but I had to unplug it to actually plug the camper in. But let's plug this fan into an actual outlet and see if we actually have power. Oh. Well, that's interesting. Now we have power. Okay, so the time delay just kicked in, I guess. Whatever seconds it's set to. I thought it said 15 seconds, but that was a lot more than 15 seconds it took to do what it was supposed to. But clearly we have power in here right now, which is good, because our actual batteries were not fully charged when I started this endeavor. And, yeah, they pretty much were close to dead. Now, the cover on that needs to be mounted to it. Obviously, I didn't put the cover on because I was worried I might have, like, issues that I may have to address. And I don't want to do any more steps than necessary until, like, it works. Now, this is going to have to be mounted somewhere. That's the only problem I have so far with this. It wouldn't be a bad thing to just mount it, like, on the side of this or, the like, right there. And it may end up right there. I'm toying with the idea of just putting it up here. If we plug in and there's an issue with the power, like, odds are, like, the slide will open on battery power. So, like, it's not a big deal to get back here, and I'm going to have to get back here anyway. I just hate the idea of having to run this wire to over there someplace. Just seems like a lot of effort. This will be real easy. Poke a hole, come up, and just out right there. And, like, this display, you can read it from far away. So, it shouldn't be a big deal. As far as that time delay goes, it wants to know, I'll have to look in the owner's manual, it wants to know if, like, the RV itself, if the air conditioners have their own time delay built in. If they don't, then there's a jumper in there I'll have to pull out to set it to a longer delay. I'm not exactly sure. I guess that's after, like, the power's out, how long it takes to turn back on. Essentially, you don't want, like, your ACs kicking on and loading things, like, right away. So, yeah, that's what that is. Was it a simple install? Yeah, I mean, the wires are big and difficult to work with. 6 gauge, I think. So that's not real fun. And then those, like I said, those current sensors, it says about the arrow needs to be facing the middle. Well, I don't know. Mine don't have arrows. And then, like, one's supposed to have green tape on it, but it doesn't. But it did have a green mark on it, so I knew that went to the black one. So that's what I did. Alright, my friends, we've got the surge protector installed, and we've been using it for, like, the last month, I guess. We spent a weekend with it at Laurel Hill, we spent 2 weeks with it in Michigan, and now we just got back from Muddy Run Campground, all of which you can look forward to on this channel if you subscribe. And then, of course, while you're at it, hit the notification bell if you haven't. But I'm going to tell you what we've experienced with this thing so far. So I ended up mounting the monitor inside the cupboard because I didn't like it here because I thought the kids would be attracted to the flashing lights, and that's no good. So it's inside the cupboard, tucked away where they can't see it, and there's also a button on there to bypass the system. If there's something that you deem safe enough to bypass and you need power in an emergency, you can do that. But I don't want the kids touching that, that's bad. Now, we've had good power everywhere that we've been so far with this thing, except for, ironically, here at the house. When we got back from Michigan and we pulled into the driveway, I had the RV outside, which I don't normally do, and I plugged it into a different outlet than I normally do. Well, the power wouldn't kick on, and this thing told me reverse polarity, so I now know that outlet is wired wrong. I gotta rewire the outlet at the house. So that's the one problem we have now. At Muddy Run over the weekend, there was a horrible thunderstorm. Horrible. Lightning everywhere, and the power did eventually go out. And we was all sitting in the camper, and I was just really excited that we had a surge protector, and I could go through that storm worry-free because I knew if lightning struck, or if anything happened, or if there was a surge when the power turned on, because we did lose power for a good while, and if there was a surge when the power turned on, we got the delays and everything, and so it does bring some peace of mind. Not that I was, like, overly stressed when stuff like that happened before because we just unplugged. But yeah, it's nice to not have to worry about things. You want your camping trips and your vacations and your life to be as manageable and manage your fatigue as much as possible. You don't want any of that sort of thing. So all in all, very happy with the install. No problems whatsoever. I hope this video is helpful. I hope you find some of the information in it useful. Otherwise, we'll see you next Thursday at Laurel Hill. And we got quite the adventure there. And then, like I said, to Michigan and beyond. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.